detractors, it's still, in essence, free money that's coming to the city to rebuild. There are many cities across the United States who also face flooding risk, who will not have any monies to rebuild or rebuild more resilient. And we have a responsibility to use this money as effectively as possible. And in that regard, to the extent that any of you in the audience are advising homeowners on which way to go when they're considering elevating their home, I'm getting the 1 minute mark, so I'm going to flash forward to why the rates. So rates are going up and going up in a very meaningful way for homeowners. So there was a repeal of some of the clauses in the Barrett-Waters Act, but all they did fundamentally was cap the annual increases. So the highest increase that folks will see will be an 18% increase on their existing rate. The average rate for homeowners is $1,000 a year if you were built after 1983, which is only about 20% of our structures, or $1,800 if you were built prior to 1983. In any of those cases, both because of the repeal of the subsidies and because of the expansion of the floodplain, which is just again saying our current risk, they will see these increases, and to get to $4,100 from nothing, you're probably going to see a $400 a year increase, and that's going to be something that for somebody on a fixed income is just incredibly difficult to manage. I am going to take 30 more seconds and just show you, because I also wear another hat as the climate change person. These maps that FEMA is giving us do not include sea level rise. And I don't have time, but I would like to play Simon Says, and I would like you all to touch your shins, and that's the level at which we expect sea level rise by 2020. And then I'd like you to stand up and reach up high if you're, by 2100, our high level estimate has 6 feet of sea level rise. There's a scientific, uncertainty here, but this is a real risk that we could face. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jesse and just say these are difficult problems to wrestle with, and I hope that all the good minds in the room, will contribute to the conversation and to think about, all kinds of innovative solutions. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Yeager. I'm the Policy Director at NYU's Furman Center. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that we've done focusing on the specific challenges that multifamily buildings face in adapting to climate change. Since Sandy hit, our office has done a lot of work investigating the effects of the storm on multifamily housing and also the challenges of becoming more resilient that face multifamily housing. And our motivation for that, and the link, I think, to today's topic of equitable resilience, is our interest and concern about the significant amounts of affordable housing that exists in the floodplain. So there were 2,900 multifamily rental buildings in Sandy's surge area, and they housed 140,000 units of rental units. And if we look at the preliminary 100-year floodplain map, the firm map that Catherine was just talking about, there are 2,550 multifamily buildings with 113,000 rental units. If we look at the 500-year map, which includes that 100-year, there are about 4,500 buildings with a total of 176,000 rental units. So if you look at all of the multifamily units in the flood zone, both rentals and co-ops and condos, that makes up about 72% of the housing units in the floodplains. And of that stock, the rental stock in there, about 80% of it is either subsidized public housing or rent-stabilized housing, which means 80% of the rental units in the flood zone is affordable housing. And even the market rate housing in there is likely providing affordable housing, given what we know about the households that live in the flood zones. The average income of a renter household in the floodplain is only $36,000 a year. So in New York City, resilience for our housing stock is very much an issue of resilience for multifamily affordable housing. And multifamily buildings face serious risks from flooding and risks that are hard to fix through retrofitting. You don't see the type of catastrophic damage that you see with the single family stock, but there's still some really significant challenges. Multifamily buildings are old, like the single family buildings. About 90% of the multifamily rental buildings in the flood zones predate 1983, when the first flood resistant design standards were added into our building code, so the vast majority of them don't comply. Multifamily buildings are also large and often attached. So the solutions that might work for a single family home, not easily, but the idea of raising a house just isn't applicable in this context. And multifamily buildings have critical mechanical systems, residential units and other critical uses that are below the base flood elevation. So they're both at the risk of flooding and out of compliance with the FEMA regulations in the city's building code. FEMA's solution for residential buildings is the same for all residential buildings, which is to raise the lowest floor of the building and all mechanical systems above that flood elevation. That's the only thing that they acknowledge